right, Josh, I'll let you get started. We have an hour before our regular meeting starts at 7 o'clock, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, board. Thank you for having us. It's been kind of a wonderful journey up until this point. Superintendent, Lincoln, and Antoinette, all the steering committee members have been very enjoyable, very helpful to work with. So we're excited to bring the recommendations to you this evening. And Molly, are you going to share your screen? Yes. Sharing capabilities. You want me to share mine?
Why don't you go ahead and share yours?
Okay.
If we can get that up there.
Everyone see that?
Yes, we're good.
Okay.
Hey Josh,
I can't-
can you make it a full screen?
Yes. I can no longer see the video, so if anyone has a question or wants to stop us, please do so. I'm trying to get the full screen here. There it is. Full screen mode. How's that, Molly?
A little bit better. Can you guys see it okay? Or is it too small?
We're okay with it
Okay.
so far.
Thank you guys, superintendent, board members. Some of you I recognize, so I think you've probably been in some of our meetings. What we're going to give you tonight is a recap of all the work that the committee has done. We have been meeting over the course of about 4 months, and Josh and Brian were out on site and did the lion's share work of assessing all the buildings. And then the committee and Todd and some of the folks on the back end helped develop and massage all of the options we're going to present to you tonight. Go ahead, Josh. It did not change.
Oh. Is it changing on anyone's screen, or are we still on the cover page?
Still on the coverage.
Let me just go, maybe get out of full screen mode here. Can you see the consultant team on your screens?
No? Yes?
Yes.
You can?
Yes.
Oh, I cannot. I'm just looking at the cover.
Oh, no, sorry.
I said no.
Sorry. Board member Chapman, sorry, yes, I thought they meant those guys.
I did too.
Can we open it up here with the box?
Yeah, I don't know if, Mr. Viviano, if you wanted to share your screen, that would be more helpful.
Are you talking to me?
Mr. Viviano, or Molly, can you see consultant team on your screen now, or do you still see the
No.
cover page?
I just see the cover page.
All right, let me stop sharing and try and reshare here. I'll just try entire screen and see how that works. Do you see that?
Yeah, consultant team.
All right, if I go to full screen mode, let's see if it holds steady. Did I go to the next slide for you, Molly?
Yeah, so we did create a project wiki site or a website that we invited not only our team members to go to and get access to all the information that we were providing, but also for you all to provide to anyone in the community that wants to see the work that we've been doing. Go ahead, Josh. Just for some of you that haven't been part of the process, it is a process that is pretty much mandated by the state. we start out aligning our goals. So the committee worked on what they felt were their vision and goals for the district. And then we start dumping a lot of facts on them, like demographics and enrollment and capacity of your schools and the utilization. And then the assessment data that Josh and Brian brought from the buildings. And then we had the committee help us sort priorities according to their goals for what the options would be for the master plan. And of course, we couldn't have everything we wanted. We had to align that with the dollars available. Go ahead, Josh. Here's a couple pictures of the work sessions. We did have, Todd, 20, 25 people in almost every meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Very interactive, great group, lots of good ideas, not afraid to throw anything out there. And so really good community meetings. And of course, that is required from the state that we do that and that you have given your community a chance to have input. Go ahead, Josh. I'll just recap real quick what the high-level goals were. These are the goals that helped us sort the options that you'll see at the end. Go ahead, Josh. So we had a little online survey. We had everybody go on there and do that. And these were the 6 categories that came up in the first meeting. They were sorted out as some of the top things that were mentioned, and then we had them rank them from 1 through 6. So school modernization was the number 1 goal with the committee. That means taking everything that we have and modernizing it for next generation learners. Safety and security was the second goal. Utilizing all of our resources was the third goal. Supporting maintenance and operations. Community connections, making sure that we think of things that the community would want us to do. And then, of course, we did discuss housing. We don't have in our options any monies put in for housing, but the committee did want to recognize that as an issue in the committee for the staff. Go ahead, Josh. And here they are ranked, and just a couple of bullets under each one. So modernization would be creating creator spaces and outdoor learning and collaborative spaces, calming spaces, expanding the CTE. Safety and security would be enhancing visual access and cameras and lighting at the schools. Utilization of resources. We really wanted to look at what to do with the Edgewood Elementary land. We had a thought about combining middle schools. Go ahead, Josh. Supporting maintenance and operations, we have some green energy goals and professional development that we wanted to look at. Community connections, we had family resources, wellness, community events, parks and rec, sports and training, and of course the housing, looking at the staff, town, and infrastructure. So when we develop a master plan, we start bringing the facts to the committee so that they can make good decisions based on factual information. So one of the first things that we brought were the enrollment trends created by our demographer. Go ahead, Josh. You can see by this chart, this is the historic enrollment, pre-K through 12, going from 2002 to 2022, and you can see that there has been a gradual decline over 20 years, and then the red line shows percent of change by year. So you can see where the red line dips dramatically in 2019, 2020. Obviously, that was the pandemic year. And then in the next few years, we have seen increase over 0%. Meaning that we are getting our students back after the pandemic. Go ahead, Josh. The decline is not just one grade level. It is pretty much a gradual decline in all grade levels. that we saw historically. So it's not like we're seeing declines in the upper grades and then growth in the lower grades or anything like that. We're seeing declines in all grades. But projections are showing that over the next 5 years, that's the course of this master plan, we are expected to pick up about 109 students according to the demographers' projections. So that's good news. To me, good news is holding steady or a slight growth. Anytime that you're growing dramatically or you're declining dramatically, things are not good, because you're having to deal with a quickly changing situation. Go ahead, Josh. We then looked at, and this is another piece of data we brought to the committee, capacity and utilization. And what that means is we look at your schools and we count the number of teaching stations in every school. We multiply it by the number of students that station could hold, and that becomes our capacity. You can go ahead to the next slide there, Josh. So that becomes the maximum capacity if you fill it all the way up. Of course, we don't recommend that you do that. We adjust it, so we have a recommended capacity, and we put a percentage on that maximum capacity number, like 95% on elementaries and 85% on middle and high schools. And then we adjust the capacity a little bit further if we see special ed programs or anything unusual like that in a school. We will adjust the capacity as well. Now, utilization is simply the enrollment divided by the adjusted capacity. So that tells us, how is the school being used? Is it being used, 100%, 50%? What's going on? Go ahead, Josh. Just a quick picture, this is how we do it. We take the floor plans and we try to look at how the building was originally designed, and that's how we count teaching stations. So in this picture, the light green, those are teaching stations in an elementary school, and that would be what we count for capacity. Go ahead. You can see here that the capacity and utilization, the dark blue bar is the functional capacity that's recommended for each of the schools. There's Moriarty, Route 66, and South Mountain. The yellow bar is the current enrollment, and the light blue bar is the projected enrollment. And then the number that you see in the orange, that's light orange squares, that's the utilization of the school right now. So Moriarty is being utilized at 71%, Route 66 at 59.3%, and then South Mountain at 99.4%. Go ahead, Josh. Here's the middles. A little bit different situation here. The middles were built a little bit larger than what is needed now. And so you can see the dark blue bars there are quite a bit higher than what we see on our enrollments, the yellow and the light blue bars. So we have Highland at 43% utilization and Moriarty Middle at 53.2% utilization. Go ahead, Josh. Here is the high school. Again, high schools in smaller communities where there's one high school, this is not unusual to see this kind of utilization because the high schools really, they have everything. They have all the specials, they have band, they have athletics, they have, CTE programs. So it's not unusual to see this type of utilization in a high school. We are seeing about 50% utilization, 50.3% utilization right now, a little bit higher in 28-29 high school. Go ahead, Josh. Here's the pre-K. Again, there's quite a bit of additional space at Mountain View for the pre-K program. So that's a good thing because I understand most communities are, growing their pre-K programs. So that's a good thing. Go ahead, Josh. And then this is the district as a whole. 55.4% of the seats are utilized in the district right now. Go ahead, Josh. So you can see here sort of a recap, current enrollment, and then projected enrollment, The pie chart shows the amount of seats available, and which is about 44.6%. Go ahead, Josh. So we recommended at this point that because in looking at 2023, 2 out of 3 elementaries, 2 out of 2 middles, and 1 out of 1 high schools are underutilized. Looking at 2028, 1 out of 3 elementaries, 2 out of 2 middles, and 1 out of 1 high schools will be underutilized. So meaning that our high schools and our middle schools and high schools are areas where we may want to consider consolidation, right sizing, anything like that. The elementaries could consolidate to 2 campuses if the conditions warranted it. That's not something I think we were looking at in this FMP, but we did take a hard look at the middle schools. The high school, we are basically recommending that you maintain and demolish old buildings and portables if they're not in use. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay, so like Molly said, as we went through these steering committee meetings, these steering committee meetings for the master plan, our intention is to scaffold this data, and when we get to the top of the scaffold, the committee understands the enrollment, the capacity, the utilization, the projections, and then we bring in the condition of the buildings. We look at the rank of the buildings, rank being how does the state, how are these buildings ranked with the state and with PSFA and PSCOC, because ultimately the committee needs to understand how they can potentially leverage state funding to be able to make improvements to your facilities. And so Brian and I assessed all of your buildings. It's part of our job to update part of our job is to identify all of the needs. And with those needs, we define a cost of construction, and we prioritize all of those needs in an effort for the district to be able to move through the next 5 years and make repairs on buildings that are most pertinent to y'all's mission. And so that was part of our process. And so we build an inventory of all your buildings and present that information to the steering committee. So one of the things that we provide is just a simple cheat sheet. We have gobs and gobs, thousands of data points in the database that informs the information that we provide the steering committee, but we boil that down into what we call a cheat sheet. And some of the important things to look at on this cheat sheet, I know it's small, but condition rank is an important part of the process, because buildings that are in poorer condition across the state of New Mexico have a higher opportunity to receive funding from the state to repair them or replace them. And also capacity and utilization is important to look at as well, because if there is an opportunity to get more money back into the classroom and back to $1 per student, then we want the committee to understand where those opportunistic areas are throughout the district, and then allow, it's really just our job to allow the committee to make the consideration. So, of course, no facilities master plan can be feasible without understanding the resources that are available in the next 5 years to put towards it. So finances are something that we work with Ms. Young on to understand. And in the committee, we put limitations on the ability to execute projects. And so it's not that we hold the committee back, it's our job to allow the committee to almost dream and develop this massive list of things and wants and needs, and then we bring in the finance piece and say, okay, now we've developed our list, now we've prioritized our list, this is how much money we have that we can actually accomplish, in the next 5 years, and so we're going to have to draw a line in the sand. So the finances boiled down to three categories: existing bond funds. There's $3.5 million of existing bond funds that were available to allocate towards the next 5 years. SB 9 funds. You guys, your community supports SB 9, supports the district with the SB 9 funds, and so instead of allocating 100% of those funds to the 5-year facilities master plan, your district needs some of those funds just to operate on a daily basis. So we agreed that 50% of those SB 9 funds annually would be allocated towards maintenance and operations, and then the remaining 50% could be allocated towards the 5-year facilities master plan. And then lastly was the general fund. We had identified $500,000 available to put towards the master plan as well. So from an existing / reoccurring perspective, there's $8.75 million available over the next 5 years. And then we also discuss bond capacity with the committee, and we discuss bond reasonableness, you could say, for what the community may or may not support. That's why it's so important to have community members on the steering committee, because there's a pulse of what the community would feel. And so in order not to increase taxes, the committee recommended that a no tax increase bond be considered, and that would occur in 2025 for $14 million. And so tack the $14 million on top of the 8.75, that's the line in the sand for the 5-year facilities master plan, which is $22.75 million. So after that, we take all of the options that are developed and put on the board, and like I said, we rack and stack them, so to speak, to get them in the order that the committee thinks make the most sense. And with that, we see how much we can accomplish with money that is available. And so, starting from top to bottom, you can see that these option numbers here are not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because some of them didn't make the list because finances couldn't support it more, because the committee didn't believe that, for example, option 9 isn't in the list. So the committee said, no, we don't believe in option 9, that one's out. So starting from top to bottom, option 1C, left to right in this table, you can see the option number, the goal, and how the option or the project aligns with the goals that the committee starts with in the beginning of this process, topic and description, and then lastly, the local and state match that would be available if these projects are qualified for state funding. And so starting with 1C the topic is middle school consolidation. And so you saw the utilization and enrollment capacity numbers for the 2 middle schools. We went through this heavily with the committee, and the recommendation was to consolidate middle schools to Edgewood Middle School and backfill Moriarty Middle School with the freshman academy. The funding impact here was $3.4 million, and that included some renovations at the Moriarty Middle School to make that a reality. The second option was to demolish the wood shop, the old wood shop at Moriarty High School. That building is vacated. It's degraded pretty heavily, and it's no longer being used. So that was a $260,000 funding impact to demolish the old wood shop. The next one is upgrading some safety and security across the district. So card readers, security alarms and cameras. There's a little over $500,000 there. The next 4 options were in relation to repairs to your current portfolio that you've signed up to care for. And so The first one is Edgewood Middle School's roof, and that also includes HVAC upgrades as well. And so that was, we believe that the state would agree to support that project. And so that's $2.2 million local match for the district, and then 1.3 from the state. The next one was Route 66, repairing the roof, and that's a $250,000 project, fix the leaks. At Route 66, we also have HVAC upgrades there, so that's a $1 million project. That also would qualify for state funding, so $630,000 out of the $1 million would be Moriarty's portion, and the state would contribute $370,000. And then the last one for repairs to the district are basically the rest of the repairs we identified as your #1 priority repairs, but they don't qualify for state funding. So unfortunately, the state doesn't contribute funding for all types of repairs for all schools. You have to fall into these specific categories, and we spent a lot of time with the committee explaining that. But it comes down to just under $3 million in repairs across the district and some of your other buildings. Number 7 is there was a lengthy discussion about constructing a permanent transportation building. Currently, it's kind of on the southeast side of town, southeast side of town, and there's a portable there that the bus drivers utilize, but not a great space for the bus drivers to utilize. It's small, and so this is to construct a permanent. I want to say we priced out a 5,000 square foot building for transportation department to be housed out of there. It's $2.5 million. Number 8 was to demolish all the buildings at Edgewood Elementary School, the old Edgewood Elementary School site, and hire an architect for conceptual design. Now, this, of course, you guys know, Edgewood Elementary School site is no longer being used as an elementary school. It also happens that Route 66 Elementary School is very high on the list for condition. And so the concept would be a potential new rebuild on the Edgewood Elementary School site. So that was $277,000. And then the $900,000 would be to cover the demolition. Number 10 was technology budget. Of course, technology seems like it's never getting any cheaper, and the amount of need is even higher today than it was 5 years ago because everyone's gone to one-to-one devices. And so we set aside $750,000 in the committee to contribute that amount per year, $750,000 per year for the next 5 years to maintain your technology infrastructure and devices. And then the last option that the committee recommended was to upgrade a handful of building systems across the district. And so your HVAC systems across the district have a control system that is outdated and no longer supported. And so upgrading the building automation system or the controls for the HVAC systems across the district is included. Upgrading flooring across the district. You have a lot of old VCT and carpet that needs upgraded. And so some refresh across the district and some of your buildings is something that was a priority. Your water treatment and your water in general is something that was a common theme across the assessments when we've been into your buildings. There were complaints about the water, complaints about the chemical makeup of the water and how hard it is. And so there is well and water treatment. I want to say we set aside $500,000 to do wells and water treatment upgrades across the district. And then lastly, fire alarm upgrades and lighting control upgrades. And so, of course, fire alarm systems are a life safety thing. Those need to be maintained and upgraded in the event of a fire. And lighting controls, you guys have a great opportunity there to upgrade your lighting and at the same time find a return on that investment by upgrading to LED lights. It makes your classrooms better lit, and it also reduces your electricity bills. So that's option 11 at 5.7 million. And then, so if you tally all these up, you end up at 22.3 million. And remember that the 24 million was the, let's see here, 24 million, 22.75 million, sorry, was the magic number. And so that's those two, the funding available plus the no tax increase bond. And so 13.66 million is what would be needed, and for a bond, and the no tax increase bond is 14 million, so that leaves just under 400,000 available for contingency or just for a buffer. We all know that the cost of construction and the volatility in the market is kind of unpredictable, and so there's some buffer there. And of course, all this doesn't have to happen tomorrow. This is a 5-year facility master plan, so that was the recommendations by the committee. That's their recommendation to the board. And that concludes the update. Mr. Viviano, turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. I wanted to, on some of the options, just a little more detail, like for 7A, construct a permanent transportation building. We had that it's not just for transportation alone, it's also for our mechanics who are part of the transportation department. So it would be a new mechanics facility as well that would have up-to-date and modernized equipment to lift those buses and to work on them. So it would be a movement of the where they currently are, the mechanics in the maintenance building, and give them more space to work, and they're right there in the bus lot with that one. So under 5, non-PSCOC priority 1 repairs, provided you that list that showed an option 5 in more detail, but you also had all the options there were there, so it was priority 1, 2, 3, and 4 for your opportunity review. I think, Josh, then I'll just open it up to any questions or comments from any board members on what they were presented tonight.
So I have a few questions. As far as this list goes, 1 through 11, is this the priority in which you intend to act upon these, or is this just how they're laid out by what they prioritized?
So these are listed as not number 1 project, number 2 project, right, if that's a question.
Yes.
They're just in numerical order based on, where is it at? This kind of list here that they created.
Right.
Right,
Little
okay,
chart.
yeah, so
Okay.
that doesn't mean that 1C is the first thing to get done before number 11.
Yeah, because it would.
Because number 11 is gonna start right off the bat, supporting maintenance and operation as needed.
Right.
Working on flooring is something you move on versus going through a whole process of closing or consolidating schools, which could take a couple of years, actually.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it would be silly to me not to upgrade and do all the things you need to do at Edgewood Middle School before you put more kids over there.
And actually, Josh, Molly, or any of the committee members, I mean, we can all, the priority 1, number 5, option 5, because you dig down a little deeper on the document that shows, those are really what we hit hard, right? I mean, they're getting the swamp coolers out of Edgewood Middle School and putting in the HVAC, getting the roofs repaired, right? That's what we would look at a priority list on what's first, second, third. And then sometimes it's out of our hands based on, we put out an RFP, we need to get moving on something, and we have to wait for bids, we have to wait, so that could be a process that moves something around and shifts it around.
The other big assumption that's part of this facilities master plan is that no tax increase bond in 2025. And you can see that that provides roughly 2/3 of the funding to execute. So, if you were to go to the community for no tax increase bond in November of 2025, reality is that funding probably won't be available until January, February 2026. So roughly 2 years from now before you could do any of these bigger projects without having that funding available.
With that said, we gotta pass a bond,
That's
correct?
what I was going to say, that we're jumping the gun. So,
So, and I would add that what you see tonight is obviously a high level, all the things we've done and the options that we've presented as a committee. Now, when we turn in our master plan, which is a pretty large document, you're going to see pages and pages that Josh's team has produced of all of those things that you see under the 4A, B, C, number 5. Those all, we will have all listed out. So lots and lots of projects in there that you can look at.
I think passing a bond today is a little more difficult than it was 10 years ago, correct? I mean, there's no hiding, you're on a major ballot. You're not a standalone election with whoever shows up, so I mean, that has to be considered as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
The good news is that it gives you a year to show your community this master plan, all the things that are going to happen in each school and any school that their children, grandchildren might go to, and get yourself ready. A lot of communities we work with, they work right up to the end here, and then put the question out to the committee right after this is done. So you will have a good year to work on this.
but really, we're thinking, you guys are thinking more of our schools declining instead of going up. So that's what I'm getting out of this, that it seems like if we're losing more and more students every year. So how's that going to help us?
You are not losing students overall. You are going to see a growth of 109 students over the next 5 years. So that's very close to being flat enrollment, so that's good news. It's not the enrollment that is what is at issue. It is the capacity and utilization at, for instance, the middle schools. So they were just built at a time when you had a different number of students, and now you have less. So you can afford to consolidate and use that Moriarty Middle School for freshman academy for the high school. So that's that was what was driving some of the information about the consolidation of the middle schools.
so if all of our middle schoolers go to school together from 6th through 8th grade, what is the need for a freshman academy when most of those kids have been in a school together for a number of years already? The transition of, from 8th to 9th, they're still going to be there with kids they were there with 6th grade. So I don't get.
Mr. Merrill?
Madam President, Mr. Young, members of the board. So there's been a lot of research done on the benefits of freshman academy. The transition between 8th to 9th is one of the most critical transitions that our school students face. And it's typically if we're going to lose students, we lose students there. The academic benefits of freshman academies, being able to really engage with students, have them together. There's a lot of opportunity for career and college enrichment and exploration that is done at a freshman academy. So the academics, I think some of the conversations that the team had or the committee had was really looking into the benefits of what the freshman academies can do, especially in our communities, looking at family engagement and trying to really reach those families, getting them re-engaged, because sometimes we lose families in the middle school, and so really re-engaging, kind of getting them ready for that jump start to high school.
And this wouldn't be, the idea of a freshman academy isn't to separate the freshmen completely from the high
Right, I
school.
understand that.
They would still have options because we would need them to come on to the campus, main campus. And also that building looking to the future, we talked about CTE offerings. We would have the capacity to be able to have classrooms available for specialized CTE programs down the road if we were able to bring them in, nursing, bigger culinary type of programs. And so, there would be some crossover, but the freshmen would, have a place that is their own to transition and have that sense of a community school for themselves as freshmen. So that's behind the research on some of that.
Mr. Viviano. Madam President, members of the board, might I also add, as a former high school math teacher, it's not the two middle schools coming together that's the issue. You have a huge gap in maturity from an incoming freshman to a senior, and to help those freshmen understand how important it is to not screw up their freshman year and already be behind on credits and learn how to play high school, quote unquote, would be huge, very beneficial to those kiddos coming in before you throw them into the sea with the big fish, if that makes sense.
Are we, as school districts our size, is there a lot of them with freshman academies?
Yes.
There's quite a few.
I know Glen, I believe, has one. I don't, that's the only one I can name. I know the bigger schools have them. I know, Hobbs and stuff like that, but.
So if I may, members of the board, Mr. Viviani, most districts that we deal with either do one of two things, a 6th grade academy or a 9th grade academy. Seems like it's the same issue, where you have a transition year that's difficult year for students. So from a curriculum standpoint, we do see it in most districts.
I have a question in regards to, I think something Josh said, with the demolition of the Edgewood Middle School and opening that land and building a new school on that, was Route 66 then the one of the elementary schools that, the next one that would be not used and move into the new Edgewood the Edgewood Elementary School?
That was the concept. Route 66, you can see, it's kind of small probably on your screen, but its condition rank is, it's coincidentally, its condition rank is 66. There are almost 800 school buildings, schools across the state. And so if you're within the top 175, the state will support rebuilding a new school. And so that was the concept behind that was, this is in the poorest condition, the highest ranked, and there's a site that we can relocate to that's not being used right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, I think it was very well prepared, and I think it was very easy to follow and understand, because this is my first time for FMP, as well as 3 new members on the board. So I thank you very much for making it so clear.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. We did want to let you know next steps for you and for us. We do, at this point, we do ask the board at some point, doesn't have to be this meeting, it's probably more of an official proceeding, that you adopt these options as the options that you're choosing. And then once we have your approval, we write your full master plan, which is about 300-400 pages, and we turn it to the state, and then they go through it and make any changes they want to make in terms of this or that. They never change your options, of course, because that's your community's, choices. But once they give their stamp of approval on it, then you're able to move forward with any projects that you have money for now, and then, of course, if you pass a bond, those projects when you pass the bond. So those are the steps that we would need from the board at this point.
Okay.
Right, and the facilities master plan is a requirement for the state to provide that additional funding I was speaking of, and so that's why it's so pertinent to be proactive about this. You can see there was several $1 million on the table, and of course, if a rebuild were to come down the line, that would be a very large amount that the state would contribute. So that's all part of the process, but you've had a wonderful community, a wonderful committee that was on, that participated. It's been a pleasure working with your community. So we want to thank you for the hospitality and for the opportunity to help.
You're welcome, Josh. Thank you, guys. Yeah, and before we get off with you, we do have some members of the committee other than principals, because all the principals and some staff members. So if who is on the committee, if you don't mind, just standing so we can thank you. Mr. Alcorn, right? Mr. Alcorn. Well, I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Chris.
Chris Army, a tech specialist.
Yep, thank you, Chris. Dan.
Dan Bell, Transportation. Patrick Riley, Minority Middle School of Social Studies.
Stephanie Alderete, I'm a parent.
And I'm Jordan Alcorn, teacher and coach at Moriarty High School.
All right. And of course, Lincoln and Antoinette and the rest of the district administrators that were part of it, and all the principals that are here tonight. We're just part of the committee. We had other family members, parents. We had any other staff members that were here. What's that?
Howard Henderson.
Yeah, well, yes, some teachers, Howard, and some other teachers. So thank you guys. Thank you for being here tonight. And the meetings and having the conversations that there were some good conversations, some hard conversations that we went through. But thank you guys. So we'll get off for now, and then I'll be in touch. Okay?
Okay, have a good evening.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So. So these are all the options that were recommended, right? So we do have an action item in the agenda, and we can have more conversations and discussion during that time. There's different options to move forward with all the options, move forward with some of the options, and then we can have, our FMP move forward, just however you guys want to do it, okay? So I think, unless you guys have some more, or want to ask the committee members any questions.
I guess, because you talked about like family, we've got the one family member, but families, how did they think about the consolidation? I mean, because it seems like that's the biggest one that we've been worried about.
Yeah, so vast majority of the committee was on board with the consolidation. That's the school staff, and any of the family members that we have at the time. Yeah.
How does that affect transportation?
So we'd have to study it, right? Yeah, we'd have to look at the study and the transportation piece. The big piece about consolidation and looking. So I threw it out there in the first meeting. My responsibility, as well as your responsibility, is to look at the finances of the district, right? When we see the capacities and we see the finances, we know the staffing. Even to this day, we lose one FTE, one teacher just in travel time, of teachers going back and forth. Only being able to offer limited elective classes. So transportation, we'd have to figure out those routes and stuff. This consolidation idea, again, is something that would be on the table. It is a big ticket item, very big. But again, it's something that would be moved on very methodically to get all of our research, all of our input. It's not just something, if it was decided by the board to include that in the facility master plan, that we just act upon it. It would be planning, community meetings, and whatnot. But again, that's just an option of all the options, okay? All right, so, anything else? Good questions, thank you. Sorry, guys, I'm on this side of the screen. I didn't even realize it. I hope you heard that. Any other? For now?
Yeah.
No? All right, you can close it, President. All right, slamming down, work session.
Hereby close this work session, and we have about 6 minutes to have a bathroom break before we start our regular meeting.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Who wants to do this one?